Hello, I wanted to do this short, hopefully, live stream um, because this is one I said I would do. I didn't know it was going to be like this um, because the title is a bit dramatic, isn't it? Right, telling you not to read a book. I'd never tell somebody not to read a book. And in the description, I do qualify that statement a little bit. But at the same time, I was saying to myself, oh, that sounds a bit clickbaity to say that. Let me turn on a light here. Hang on. But it's not clickbait because this is one of the two books that I want to review. And I'm a big reader. At the moment, I'm doing a podcast. I'll be on again this afternoon. We're on chapter 7 of Dracula, which is a classic Gothic horror. And I'm absolutely loving it. It's kind of pulp fiction of the time, but is very well written. I think there were just better writers around then. The ability to speak the English language was better too. But that's just a personal opinion. And this is a personal opinion about this book, The Writer's Journey by Christopher Vogler, right? Vogler or Vogler. I don't know how he pronounces it. 25th anniversary edition. And I have my bookmark in. Full disclaimer, you can see I'm not terribly far in. Nice book, lovely illustrations in, which I gave out about previously when I got the book, but I'm getting to like them a bit better now. I think I don't know if they're just a pal of the writers or whether they're a professional illustrator. I thought there was some weak drawing in them, being an artist myself, but I'm not going to give out about the illustrations anymore because they fit well with the content. But this book, this has been a hugely popular book with authors. And this video, I actually haven't hashtagged it, but the hashtags don't really get me much traction on these videos, despite the fact that I adore books and that I am a novelist myself. My booktube videos don't get many views. And a lot of my own subscribers are on the channel because they enjoy some videos that I do about sewing. And when you're sewing, you're not reading, are you? So that's why I was doing the podcast, because they're audio books and they're by a human voice. And I'm very anti AI taking over all of that because humans. Reading books, you can't beat it because there's something about having a physical book and you're sitting down reading a book. There's a voice in your head reading it. It's got its own pace and everything. But if you're listening to an AI voice reading a book, there's nowhere that they're going to match the intonation. They're going to stop sentences in the wrong place. They really aren't where they need to be as readers. So I wanted to add my little bit to the conversation, as it were, and do some audio podcasts with the human reader. So Dracula is the first in the series. So that's why I'll be back on again today. So sorry you're seeing so much of me. However, this one, right? For anybody who's ever thought about writing a book, and I have written 2 books, right? And I've actually just been promoting them now for the Christmas market because for the first time, as well as having them on Amazon, I have one of them in paperback on my Etsy shop. And that was because somebody had told me that it wasn't available in the UK market. There was some snafu going on with Amazon where they made it unavailable. So I said, oh, I'll sort that out myself. And then decided, yeah, I'll sell it on Etsy as well because it's nice to have different outlets. You are allowed to do that with Amazon. I have to match the prices. I can't sell it at anything lower than their prices, but I ship it myself. And some people like it signed, so I can do that for people if they like. I've never collected signed copies. It means nothing to me. If the book is good, it means something to me. Now, this book is a book for writers to tell you about mythic structure for writers, and that is telling you about how mythology from the past informs our writing, and how really writers are kind of telling the same stories all the time. And this guy was, and I'm sure he is still, a huge fan of this guy, Joseph Campbell, who I'm a huge fan of as well. So when I bought Joseph Campbell's book, The Hero with a Thousand Faces, which is about storytelling and mythology specifically, and he is really expert on those topics. Um, this is also a classic book. This was first published in the late 40s, and it's still getting published and still getting read a lot. And there's a Joseph Campbell Foundation now, and a lot of material of Joseph Campbell speaking is available on YouTube and is so well worth watching. Okay, so I'm a huge fan of him, and so is Christopher Vogler, the guy I'm going to talk about. And this guy is a story consultant for 20th Century Fox, Paramount, and Walt Disney. Okay, so he's a big sort of screenwriter, consultant, story guy in Hollywood, basically, for movies, right? And this book that he wrote, it's billed, and all the little glowing reviews on the inside cover and everything, which go on for a while, several pages, tell you what a fabulous resource it is for writers. Now, they do say screenwriters will love it, but they seem to be including novelists and other types of writers as well. And my argument is no, no. If you are a novelist or an aspiring novelist, don't listen to any of the advice in this book, because that's what he does. He gives you advice based on what Joseph Campbell, I'm going to say, revealed really about the structure of mythology and the stories we tell in modern day, being a similar kind of a thing, and that they do have a structure, and that there are steps in the storytelling that follow that particular structure, which we could call a mythic structure, because it's based on a retelling of the same myths in different ways through the ages. This guy tells you how to do that, and he says it very clearly throughout the book, written in a style that I think is very clear but really boring and stylistically poor, you know. This is a personal opinion, you know. Somebody else will love this book. But for novelists, the reason that I'm going to tell you to not follow the advice, he has a lot of advice, and he pares it down so much to always do this, never do that, and actually has lists of things to do, right, when you're writing a story. This, I would argue, in my personal opinion, is the death of your book right here if you follow this advice. Now, if you're somebody who follows other writers, and, like, you know, somebody like who's not in the same business, a screenwriter advisor, really, this guy is. If you're following advice from somebody who's, for example, I'm a painter, if I took advice from somebody that wasn't a painter and started painting based on what ordinary people told me that they liked in paintings or didn't, that they liked things to look naturalistic, and that they liked really bright colors and everything, would I be an idiot or not? I would be, because to be a painter is to be very, very well informed about your art, you know. And okay, I'm going to go ahead and say there's an art to movies as well, but not every movie is a piece of art. And it's interesting because now he's to do with movie people, isn't he? So this is why I'm talking about movies instead of novels suddenly. But this is part of my point about why not to read this book if you want to write a novel, or if you're already a novelist and think you're missing out on something. Now, the Joseph Campbell book, I would read if you don't know anything about Joseph Campbell. And I didn't read it before I wrote my novels, but it turned out that at least one of the novels followed the scheme of his mythic storytelling pretty closely, actually. But Christopher talks about movies, right, in the book, and he uses them as examples, which is fair enough if you're going to write a screenplay. So probably a great book for people writing screenplays, but a lousy book for people who are novelists. Don't read it if you're going to write a novel, because he is talking about blockbuster box office movies and how you get bottoms on seats and box office returns. Movies he's talking about typically are ones like some of the ones he was involved in. One of them was Star Wars, which you would have heard of possibly. I've even heard of that, and I don't go to the movies very often. Um, Other ones are, to me, very obscure now, but I suppose reflect when he wrote the book, because this is 25 years old now. But I would consider awful movies like An Officer and a Gentleman. He keeps citing as an example of good storytelling. Um, it was a successful movie, but what a lousy movie. I thought it was a really lousy movie in terms of art, you see. And I'm speaking about art here. What kind of a book do you want to write? Do you want to write a book that's pulp fiction, or sort of, I don't know, a romantic novel that's pretty much to a formulaic kind of a thing? Now, I'm not putting down romantic novels. Think of Jane Eyre, or think of my book, The Q Affair. I actually invented a new genre for it because it was a comedy, thriller, romance, but it did have a romantic element in it. But there was no formulaic stuff going on at all. But yet it was a very solid, held together structure. And you do have to really think about your structure when you're writing, particularly a novel, which is a very long project for both the reader and the writer. Although if it's a page turner, somebody that read my book said it took them 2 days because they stayed up all night to read it because they couldn't bear to put it down. So I went, yes, I was really happy about that. But do you want a piece of art? Or do you want something that's poorly written, but has a story that sounds like other stories in the same genre? You have to decide which is it you want. One is dross, the other is art, okay? And I don't mind being stuck up about this because I have great taste in books. And I like to think I write good books as well. So, as a writer, I'm saying great for screenplay people who want to pitch a screenplay to Hollywood. You're never going to get your screenplay looked at. Probably 99.99% of you aren't going to get your screenplay looked at by Hollywood or any big studio, because it's all pals brigade in there, just as it is in every business. Okay, so I'm here to give you direct news today, and that's why the name of the video is so direct as well. We don't live in a meritocracy, okay? Just get over all your illusions about if you have merit, you will be successful. That's part of an American dream, a marketing dream. It's not reality, okay? I'm not saying don't make art. Make your art as good as you can make it. And to heck with everybody. You'll make better art by not reading stuff like this if you're a novelist. And the films he mentions in it as well. I'm trying to think of other dreadful films he mentions in it in glowing terms. Beverly Hills Cop. He must have been involved in that as well. Or perhaps he just admires it as a movie. But that was a dreadful movie, really awful. And people went to the cinema to see it. But because we don't live in a meritocracy, the really good movies don't make huge box office returns, generally speaking, because they don't get people to invest in them, because the big investors with screenplays are saying, no, we want something a little bit like this one. Why can't you make like Beverly Hills Cop again with a different twist? The guy is going to be, I don't know, if the guy was black in one of the movies, he can be white in this movie. And have a female sidekick instead of a male sidekick or something. You just put a twist on it. But that is capitalism and marketing for them. You see, it's the society of the spectacle, as Guy Debord would say, but it's also about recycling and watching things that we've already seen that might be marketed as being very different, very new, but are actually familiar things to us that we just put a little twist on. And these stories that Joseph Campbell pointed this out to us first, and that this guy latched on to the idea, which is fine. It's great to really admire somebody. But he bastardized it. By talking about how you can use it to make your blockbuster movies, and never pointing out that, oh, by the way, that's not art, that's just Hollywood movies. Joseph Campbell does point out that our modern stories can be a recycling. Say a book that I was speaking about recently, the theme of transformation in Homer's Odyssey, I was speaking about. I have a live stream on that. That's considered the earliest novel, right? And that's based on mythology. And you'll recognize it as sounding terribly modern. It's a fantastic book and a wonderful read. I would recommend it. But very modern as well, because a lot of our stories use the same kind of themes and the same stages in the story. However, they don't beat them to death the way they often do in Hollywood movies, and they don't do a remix on them so faithfully that you go to the movies and, I went to a movie and it was something about the Da Vinci Code, one of the follow-ups to it. And I went to the movie because I was very tired and it was the only place I could sleep, because I had to walk around a city all day. And I said, I'll go to the movies and at least I'll get to sleep, because I was about to fall asleep and I didn't want to fall asleep on the park bench. I went to the movie and I woke up near the end of it when there was a bomb going off. And I went, oh, okay, I had a lovely sleep. And I woke up and I went, oh, yeah, I know the plot. Because I knew the plot, not having seen the movie, just from the ending. It's that, I'm so glad that I picked that movie to sleep to, because it wasn't something that I would have wanted to watch again. But Joseph Campbell, yeah, do go and check him out. I actually didn't get a huge amount more out of this than I got out of my viewing of his lectures and things on YouTube, to be honest with you. But it is a lovely book, I have to say. But this one, be aware that, yeah, it's about writing. Some of the advice is good if you want to write rubbish movies. Now, I'm not dissing movies, but they're not all art, okay? A friend of mine said to me a while back, why don't you sign up for Netflix? And I said, nah, I don't think I'd be into that. I just watch the same old movies that are my favorites all the time. And but I did decide to go off and look, because I'll always look at something, if I'm going to diss it, I'll have a look at it and reconsider my opinion, maybe. I don't think I'll reconsider my opinion that I'm given today, mind you, because it is arrived at in a very definite way and I'm very sure of it. But I did go and check out Netflix and I looked up all my favorite movies. None of them were there. None of them. And then eventually I discovered, okay, what the movies that I'm into, they are in collections online that you can sign up for. But all the movies I liked were in this service called Criterion Movies. And, if I was going to sign up to some kind of a streaming service, it would have been theirs I signed up to. And they would be typically thought of as a cult movie kind of fan base for those kinds of movies, not box office movies. So that's the difference between art movies. For example, a Tarkovsky film like the original of Solaris, which I'm mentioning because there was a remake of Solaris and it had somebody like George Clooney in it. And, it wasn't too bad, but they took a movie which really was a piece of art because Tarkovsky filmed it, and it was from a book, a science fiction book, which is on my reading list. I haven't read it yet because it's terribly expensive. Any book that's labeled cult is going to be wildly expensive because I have a cult book. I've tried to keep it a little bit in the kind of popular price range because I don't want to cult myself out of existence completely. But the book that it's based on, I think he's a Russian science fiction writer, and Tarkovsky was Russian as far as I know. Solaris was a work of art as a novel as well. It's one of the classic science fiction novels that in that genre is considered not a piece of pulp fiction, but a piece of art in the way that Asimov's Foundation would be considered a real work of art, and groundbreaking stuff and everything. And the movie Solaris is such a beautiful movie, and any of Tarkovsky's movies are just wonders. But it's art. The things that he'll do with cinematic shots, he'll let them go on for ages and let you actually inhabit the space with the director and the movie and live in it a while without all these quick changes and things that happen in Hollywood movies to give people, bread and circuses, really, isn't it? It's just quick entertainment, but really for the masses. And that would be for, including people who have the least refined tastes, let's say. And I've said it before, I am a snob because I'm an artist, you see, and I have very good taste in some things, and we can still talk about taste. There is a thing in the sort of your commoner, if you like. I'm getting this language from Bram Stoker at the moment. He's very down on your average peasant in the book. It's hilarious. Do tune into the podcast today because you can go back to chapter 1 and start at chapter 1, but it's really starting to get very hilarious. Gothic novels can get very funny in the middle as well as having scary bits. They're supposed to be fun, you see. So, and I do loads of funny voices and everything, so you can't beat a human reader, really. So, I've totally forgotten what I was going to say because I was so enjoying thinking about Dracula. I was talking about peasants, yeah. So peasants they haven't typically had the access to the really, really good stuff. So, for example, when I went to art college, we did all kinds of film studies. We didn't do extensive studies on novels, funny enough, but we did do visual kind of things, studies on visual things, and discussions of movies and things like that, critiquing of things. So that isn't typically how your average person goes through life because your average person is so busy working all the time and being exhausted the rest of the time that they don't have time for the arty-farty stuff of thinking about novels they're reading and thinking about films they're digesting, They just sit there passively because they're exhausted and let the thing wash over them. So, there's a place for that, but they don't get offered a wide range of things either. And they don't go seeking them, you see, because they don't know the other good stuff is out there. This is why I come along and I tell people, hey, go read Dracula or go listen to it if you don't have time or you're too exhausted to read or whatever. Um, so most people don't have great taste and stuff, but great taste can be developed. You have to want to, you have to actively work on it. And perhaps people are too busy with their lives to do that. However, there is a place for somebody like me who is an artist or a writer or whatever you want to call me, coming along and saying, hey, look, if you want to take advice, if you want to do this thing, know the difference between what's art and what is not art first. Educate yourself if you're not sure of the difference. Do not write a book if you don't have an artistic thought in you. A lot of people want to write books. I saw a guy recently, I was over on his channel, and he said he wanted to write a book. And then he announced he had nothing he wanted to write about. He had to think of something. And I gave him advice. I said, wait until you have something you are burning to say that you absolutely must say. Then you're ready to start writing. And then you can look at a structure. I won't hold up this book because I wouldn't recommend it for novelists. Avoid it. No, 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 no. Don't go near that book unless you're going to write for Hollywood and your screenplay is going to be turned down. You're not in the Pals Brigade. So I'm just giving it to you straight, okay? Do art. Do art instead. Do an arty movie, okay? To heck with them. So, Joseph Campbell's ideas about the mythic structure in storytelling, excellent. If you don't know how to, I did a course in this, but I'm not republishing it. If you don't know how to put a novel together, if you've no idea how to structure a novel, and a novel needs a structure, if you want to keep a reader engaged, understanding your book and wanting to read it again because it was such an amazing, life-changing book that they can't forget about, then get yourself a plan for your structure. And if you haven't heard of Joseph Campbell's Mythic structure, perhaps, read his book or listen to a few of the things, but don't sit there making a list, okay? Rules are there to be broken by artists. If you're an aspiring novelist that has something burning urge to say a particular thing and build a whole book around that, well, then you are going to be able to put together your structure for your novel anyway, even without this, okay? Because you will be a very keen reader already. You will be a very educated reader, probably. And you will have a lot of experience under your belt about how to go about this. It's not a sitting there, a half-assed thing of, I think I'll write a book. What would people like to read? Don't bother writing a book if you're going to do that, unless you want to be pulp fiction and, maybe you'll get your pals publishing it or something like that if you've got pals in publishing. But do you want to make the world a better place with more art in it, or do you want to write rubbish? If you want to write rubbish screenplays, buy this book. Avoid it like the plague if you're a writer who considers yourself a good writer and who wants to write good books. Okay, a very strong opinion there, but he might actually argue that, well, he never intended it for novelists. He intended, and it does say screenplays all over the place here. 101 Dalmatians, Fight Club, Courage Under Fire, Volcano. I don't know what that one is. About a volcano, I suppose. The Thin Red Line, Aladdin, The Lion King. All Hollywood movies, you see. All formulaic, because he's saying they fit the Joseph Campbell thing. But they actually scrunch things into that formula. That's what he trains people to do for the screenplays. Hey, scrunch it into this formula. And I'm saying, no, artists, true artists, don't do that. They are their own audience in a way. And then people with very, very discerning tastes come to those books because they realize that they're very individual visions, but individual visions which appeal to something that is our mythic storyteller within each of us, you see, and taps down very deep into that in a very individual way that's very special, and you don't want to muck that up, okay, in your book. So, book reviews in a way, but also advice about writing from a writer. Okay, bye bye, and I'll see you later for Dracula. Looking forward to that. Chapter 7, chapter 6 was a blast, I have to say.